Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Rowe, and I am the Programs and Strategy Lead at WHRIN. WHRIN is a global platform formed to expand gender responsive harm reduction for women and gender diverse people. WHRIN's goal is to improve the availability, quality, relevance, and accessibility of health, social, and legal services for women and gender diverse people who use drugs. By pursuing the goal, WHRIN envisions that all women and gender diverse people who use drugs have unfettered access to quality, gender responsive health, social, and legal services in a context of upholding human rights without stigma, discrimination, or criminalization. Last year, WHRIN were invited to review an information sheet on ketamine produced by the Asian Harm Reduction Association. This exercise illuminated a number of gendered research gaps, as well as indications of potentially distinct differences in the experience of people using ketamine recreationally who are not cis men, bringing attention also to the general lack of gender-responsive harm reduction guidance on ketamine use. This resulted in a WHRIN collaboration with Talking Drugs to generate a publication titled Gendered Ketamine Use, Emerging Research and Harm Reduction Recommendations. Noticeably absent from the available literature are lived experience accounts from women and gender diverse people who use ketamine. WHRIN acknowledges that, as with other drug use, there is a range of ketamine formulations and contexts for use in different regions, and also understands that experience can be as diverse as the people who are using ketamine themselves. Given the outcomes of the paper, which should be read as a companion piece with this audio product, WHRIN put out a call to allies to ask people to share their experiences and to open up the conversation on this otherwise underexplored area. In light of this, we're very pleased to introduce our two contributors. Dinah Kate McMillan uses the pronouns she, her, and is based in Italy. Dinah has worked as a peer harm reduction operator since 2015. She is now working as a harm reduction peer educator in Turin and is active in a feminist non-binary collective called Chemical Sisters. She is part of Intanpud and has 9 years experience in drug policy and human rights, and holds degrees in anthropology and global development studies. Since May 2023, she has been part of the Youth Rise International Working Group. Ma Cunha uses the pronouns he, they, and is based in Portugal. Ma did their Masters in Pharmaceutical Sciences and is currently working with Cosmicare in Lisbon on the fixed location drug checking service. They also work in a DIY rave venue in Lisbon, organising a harm reduction and queer care awareness team. Hello to you both, and thanks for being here. Can you tell us a bit about your personal experience with ketamine?
My personal experience with ketamine started with chemsex. I didn't use inhaled substances, meaning I didn't snort, but I only drank MDMA. I was with my boyfriend at the time, around 16, 17 years old, and he was about to take a line of ketamine. He offered it to me, but I said no because I didn't use substances by snorting. Then he told me that it was possible to take it orally, in a little bundle like MDMA. So I ate it, the same amount in a rolling paper. Let's just say I never experienced that kind of high again. It was amazing, I have to admit it. I use ketamine during chemsex, but since I also take a lot of amphetamines, a small dose of ketamine is perfect for helping me relax. Interestingly, it also enhances my arousal. However, it doesn't always have the same effect on my partner, in this case as a cisgender man, who sometimes doesn't even realize he has come, and therefore it is important to use condoms, especially female condoms, so you don't have to trust cis boys. Since ketamine is anesthetic, it is important to know that it can lessen pain during anal sex or fisting, which means you might not feel the pain and could end up with cuts and bleeding, which increases the risk of contracting disease and bacterial infections.
Do you have any thoughts about ketamine in the context of chemsex?
Not directly chemsex related, but I think it's interesting to think together why it's so prevalent within the queer and trans community. John Lilly, a neuroscientist and psychonaut who famously did studies on ketamine and dolphins and was a cis man, mentions that he had to give up his gender to save his friend from a K-hole by entering a K-hole himself, which I found interesting. And also there's a lot of self-medicating with ketamine within the queer community, and also possibly related to the lack of accessibility to medical and mental care.
Regarding the queer community and the use of ketamine, I have gathered lived experience accounts from several trans people between the age of 25 and 30 years old. Some people attribute the use of ketamine to a desire to numb themselves and dissociate from their bodies. Ketamine has, in effect, the ability to induce a sensation of separation between the mind and the body because of its dissociative effects, altering perception, mood, and consciousness. With my project Chemical Sister, we talked about the use of ketamine and we shared our experiences. This is what came out. We thought that maybe many young people are using it much more because of the disconnection from reality, but also a form of entertainment and fun. And it's often sought without much prior reflection. It's sometimes used to feel part of a group. However, the fact that this has become popular and widespread in this period should prompt us to reflect on the historical and economic phase we are living through and how we can make ketamine use context safer for youth, women, and gender diverse people.
It's both. So, on interactions with the body, have you experienced effects on your body that you think are important to share?
So ketamine is helpful with period pain, even when it's not responsive to ibuprofen and butylscopolamine, for instance, which are the most common medications used for managing this pain. Also, some people with severe migraines also reported it to be useful in managing migraine crises, even again when their SOS medication does not help. Regarding mixing ketamine with other drugs, ketamine combines well with psychedelics like LSD and entheogens like MDMA, in the sense that they both increase each other's effects and produce a new profile of effects. With LSD, for instance, even with a low dose of LSD, if you take ketamine for around 40 minutes, which is the time that ketamine will have effects, you get an increase in the psychedelic effects.
Ketamine is interesting also because it is often used by people who manage their use of substances in various ways and take precautions. Many of those who have approached these substances have a relatively low risk profile, and its consumption typically occurs during moments dedicated to fun. In my social context in Italy, those who use ketamine often come from relative privileged backgrounds compared to many other drug users. These individuals tend to have relatively stable economic situation, supportive family or friendship networks, and many are also university students.
With regards to practical advice, do you have any sort of advice for other women and gender diverse people using ketamine recreationally? Like what can be done to minimize risks and improve overall experience?
So first, I think it's important to highlight that, as noted on the paper, there are no studies made with trans people and little information on possible interactions that ketamine might have with hormonal replacement therapy, despite apparent significance as demonstrated in rat studies. And overall, most scientific studies are only made with cis men, which creates, of course, a huge bias in the data available.
In countries where drug checking is possible, there is a better opportunity to ensure that you are using what you are asked for. In Italy, an alert was issued about a decade ago by an Italian project, Lab 57. A significant amount of methoxetamine, sold as ketamine, has been repeatedly reported in the Bologna area and province. Methoxetamine is a novel psychoactive substance that has emerged in recent years and used for its recreational and psychedelic effects. Methoxetamine is a structural analog of ketamine with a much longer duration of action and intensity of effects, and has been extensively advertised as its legal and bladder-friendly alternative. While research on actual effect is lacking, methoxetamine use can be a significant health risk and may even lead to fatal intoxication. Those who have consumed it indeed report a much longer duration in respect with ketamine, and depending on the amount consumed, ranging from 4 to 7-8 hours, with potential side effects, including nausea, falls, total amnesia, and/or violent nervous jerking, with a total recovery time of 12-24 hours.
Also, in the UK, in the US, and everywhere, they're also finding psilocybin in samples sold as ketamine. Psilocybin is used for sedation, pain relief, and muscle relaxation in veterinary medicine, where it's referred to as horse anesthesia. Psilocybin emerged as a popular legal substance amongst those who inject drugs in Puerto Rico in the early 2000s. Currently, there's limited information about the recreational use, geographic prevalence, and immediate or long-term effects of psilocybin in humans. A toxic dose can lead to respiratory depression and overdose. So we really hope to see drug checking services expanded and available in more sites and more countries, as well as changes in drug policy that can lead to more safer alternatives.
I was just wondering, how do you cook ketamine?
It's important when you cook ketamine to think about the quality of water you are using to cook it. Also, sterilize the pan you are using to cook and always use a new one. This is my advice.
An alternative method is also to do it in an oven at 50 degrees Celsius. In this way, you know that you will not burn it, and it will have time to proper crystallize and form better crystals. Burning ketamine on the pan can happen very easily and can also lead to molecule breakdown and formation of degradational products of unknown toxicity.
Thanks both. I would like to know a bit more. So how do you manage the effects of ketamine both during and after use? Are there other practices or strategies that you have found useful?
One and first advice I could say is to sit down. If you're using and you want to experience a K-hole or just use ketamine, just sit down. It's a very close, and if you have a very close friend, it's better to have friends around you, because when I used ketamine, one of the effects was that I quickly felt my head detached from my body and experienced a spinning sensation for about 40 minutes. But I managed to handle it, especially because I had my friends around. Regarding the sit down, it's important because I have an experience. A friend didn't sit down and she broke her arm because she fell from the chair and she didn't realize, and she slept on her arm for all the night. So if you first sit down, it's useful. It's important to conduct also a political analysis of the phenomenon, because starting from the concept of the anti-prohibitionism, it follows that we must have control over our bodies and our pursuit of pleasure. Self-determination is important. In the case of the ketamine use, there are critical issues that we must continually consider regarding our self-determination. We should not judge individuals, but rather investigate consumption patterns. It is crucial to recognize the steps that precede problematic use. For instance, how much time elapses from using a line of a certain number of milligrams to take in a line 3 or 4 times larger. This is precisely because it creates a strong dependence, and at first glance, the amount in a line of ketamine may not seem like a significant choice, but it is very important. It's essential to ask oneself what one is seeking from the substance in that moment.
Also, intensive chronic use of ketamine is toxic for the bladder, and ketamine-induced cystitis has been reported in several users and can lead to long-term urinary system damage. It's thought that one of the major causes of this is the direct toxicity to the bladder lining by ketamine's metabolites that are eliminated through urine. A possible approach to reduce this can be to consciously drink more water or other non-alcoholic drinks while taking ketamine to dilute the metabolite concentration in urine and possibly reducing the bladder's irritation. This also helps with the frequent need to pee, but then you almost don't pee, famous ketamine's ghost pee. And also, while ketamine on its own has a lower respiratory depression, when it's mixed with alcohol, GHB, or other central nervous system depressants, it can quickly and unexpectedly cause dizziness, sedation, nausea, and lead to overdose. It's common for people to take what would be their normal dose of ketamine, but if you had been drinking alcohol, it will have a much stronger sedative and unpredictable effect.
The therapeutic efficacy of ketamine can be decreased when used in combination with cortisone. Cefpodoxime can reduce the excretion of rate of ketamine, potentially leading to higher serum levels.
Reflecting about shared thoughts and experiences from others, what about the places and situations where women and gender diverse people consume ketamine?
Ketamine has a reputation as a date rape drug, but a better term to use is drug-facilitated sexual assault. But I feel that this really feeds into the narrative of blame shifting into the victim. Like if they chose to take the drug themselves versus someone spiking them, it's like it's not sexual assault if they were the ones that decided to take the substance. Also, there's this myth of the evil stranger that puts something in your drink versus someone that you already knew or interacted with or were hanging out that took advantage of you for not being able to consent, which is, as some studies report, like the most common case. And these issues warrant greater attention given the tendency for people to underreport such assaults. Incidentally, ketamine does not have the best characteristics for spiking a drink. A very low oral bioavailability, which means that only 17% is absorbed if you take it orally, meaning that you have to take a very high dose to achieve the same effects as if you would snort it. Also, ketamine mixed with alcohol can give very intense effects, which is unexpected. So this can also contribute to you feeling suddenly much higher than you thought, and then you thinking like that maybe someone spiked your drink.
In Italy, at rave parties and events that are supposed to be safe and free environments, the judgment varies significantly depending on whether the user is a male or a female. Men, whether dressed or not, conscious or not, can be found collapsed anywhere, and they rarely face any consequences beyond the risk of having their wallet or phone stolen. On the other hand, women who wish to use ketamine and enjoy the experience must always stay alert. We have often encountered situations where women in a K-hall or in the chill-out zone were harassed. There is also the stigma of the ketamine junkie girl, a label that is not applied to men. Generally, ketamine use is stigmatized in free party context, especially in countries like France. Catch, or ketamine, is often blamed for killing the free party scene. This is because catch leads to isolation and introspection rather than connection and empathy. For this reason, many people believe that ketamine has ruined the atmosphere on dance floor. However, in other contexts, there are those who play music specifically to cater to to cater to and accommodate people who prefer using ketamine. Recently, however, another use of ketamine has emerged. When taken in smaller doses, ketamine induces feeling of euphoria.
When taking ketamine, as with other drugs, it's important to think about sets, how you're feeling, your level of experience with that drug, and your intentions, but also the setting, which means the environment you are in and with whom. And also thinking about interaction with other drugs, how they will affect you. Example, if you become too sedated to be safe in a certain context. It's also good to think ahead about using drugs in a particular space. Like if you will be taking drugs in a rush, in a poorly lit club toilet, because you are rushing, so the bathroom attendant does not see you, it can lead to accidentally taking more than you wanted. Another tip that can be useful is to crush your ketamine beforehand, because this will save you time in these stressful situations, and it will be easier also to predict the dose you are taking. It's essential to think beforehand about how you're going to get home after, to arrange with friends, so you don't end up in a risky situation, like being too high, alone at the end of the party, and without no way of getting home.
Thank you so much for such an amazing session. And thank you both, Dinah and Ma, for walking us through your reflections on ketamine use and the experiences you have had, or your colleagues or your friends using ketamine. And we're certain that your insights and expertise, especially on the ways in which we can more safely enjoy the experience of taking ketamine, have been invaluable to everyone. These reflections are also critical for addressing the paucity of knowledge on harm reduction, guidance on the gendered implications of ketamine use, and we hope that these provide impetus for more discussions and conversations on these underexplored yet prevalent issues, particularly to capture the experiences of women and gender diverse people who use ketamine in other contexts globally. So we thank you. And thanks everyone for listening to our conversation, our discussion, and we invite feedback from you, the audience. Please also visit the virtual library at WHRIN.site under position statements to access the paper on ketamine use titled Gendered Ketamine Use, Emerging Research and Harm Reduction Recommendations, and let us know your thoughts.